Hi,
Hi, good morning.
how are you?
Good. I'm just reading some old stuff I wrote. I was looking for something that I wrote about Roll of Thunder and I can't find it, but that's okay.
Oh, you wrote about that book.
Well, I just wrote, you know,
Uh-huh.
I was just writing after reading it.
Thoughts.
Yeah, just thoughts, nothing like researchy.
Right.
But I'm scanning this piece of paper before.
Yeah, I reviewed my notes from when I was a teacher.
Yeah.
And I actually have never taught the book. I had my students read it. And so I made notes about it, of course, for them to, discuss. The students that were reading it were discussing it. But to teach a book it's very different.
Yeah.
Yeah, at least for me.
Yeah. No, I've never taught a book, so I trust you
Oh,
completely.
but you've written them. So it's so funny, isn't it? I've never written a book.
But you could. Oh my, you sure could. You've got really
I don't know about that, but
you've got stories. I don't know.
yeah, I've written many in my head over the years.
Have you? Do you want to?
Um, yeah, I would love to be able to do it. I don't have the I have the discipline to do lots of things, but it doesn't seem to apply to that area.
Hmm.
Yeah.
What kind of book do you envision? If you don't mind talking about it.
Oh, no, no, not at all. Wouldn't that be a great question to ask anybody? If you could write a book, what book would you write? Um,
Yeah.
I would love to write about my sister.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never, there would be no reason for me to ever have spoken to you about her,
Yeah.
but she had such a profound influence.
Hmm.
Um, she was born with brain damage due to lack of oxygen.
Okay. Older or younger than you?
Younger,
Okay.
much younger. Well, actually 6 years younger, but
Yeah.
in my mind, it was always as if it's so funny. As an adult, I realized, oh my gosh, I was 6 when I became a second mother to my sister. Isn't that funny?
That's very interesting. So
Yeah.
6, and the baby comes home, and it's not how you expected it to be, or how anybody expected it to be, because she doesn't have
Mhm.
did now with some level of brain damage. Could she communicate? Could she cry?
Not really, not much.
Oh,
Um, sh and nobody knew. It was 1962, so
they just thought
it,
this was a quiet, disturbed baby.
nobody talked to my mom about it at all. She just came home and then started to notice. And I started to notice because I had 3 siblings before that I helped take care of. So I started to know, I knew this baby is not doing what these other babies did.
Wow.
Because I had 3 siblings by then. So she came along the 4th sibling. But anyway, it's a long, long journey story.
Wow.
And when I look at your books, I think, could I tell her story maybe like that? It's funny.
Yeah.
And I, she's kind of, she fits into this world that we talk about for me,
Hmm.
because she didn't become fully herself until right before she died.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, it just took that long over her lifetime for her brain to develop to the point where she could do the things that she might have done when she was, I don't know, 13, 14, 15.
Oh my goodness, what an
Yeah.
age to come into right before the end.
And she was in my care um, for a long, long time. And so she became like when I was the person who, when she became physically unable to take care of herself, she had lots of physical problems too.
Hmm.
So I got to sing to her and take the oxygen thing off of her and let her die. And it's been 3 years now, but I still, feel it.
Yeah.
Her story is so representative of how we really just don't know, what somebody could be,
on?
whether it's looking at anti-Blackness or, looking at someone who everyone tried to convince my parents to institutionalize her.
And somehow your family was able to, with your help, with your parents' help, with however many anybody else, were able to keep her at home.
Absolutely. She stayed at home. She went to school. She developed very slowly.
Oh.
She developed very slowly. She could read. She could do simple math. But once my parents were gone, she really was like reborn.
Really?
Yeah. She started asking me things like, why did I not have friends like you all did? She started, it was, see,
good question.
Yeah, all these things like, why was my life not like yours? Why did I never have a partner? Why did I, why did I never have a job? Yeah. So these profound questions that she started to ask.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so she lived to be, I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
No, that's all. That's it. Yeah.
She lived to be fully adult age, fully into
Yeah.
middle age.
Yeah, she died 3 years ago. So I was 62, so she was 56.
Wow.
Yeah. And really, probably physically, it's pretty amazing she lived that long.
That is amazing.
Yeah, that her body was able to, she had so many physical problems. The last 8 years of her life, she was, wheelchair bound and bed bound and, in the kind of pain where she's calling me in the middle of the night, screaming in pain, and I'm trying to calm her down. And, that kind of life, it feels to me like I should really write about that, for myself.
Yeah.
So thank you for the opportunity to answer that question much more fully than I would have thought I would.
I would love to hear more about that and be part of what helps you keep that warm. Those embers warm. If you want it to become a bonfire, I count on me because I have lots more questions.
I'm
to the degree that helps, and we could record your answers and then have them transcribed, and then you have the start of a book right there.
Oh my gosh, I feel like I'm gonna just sob. That is, I think that's what's been stopping me. I haven't had a companion to do it. I do better when I'm in that companionship relationship.
Yeah.
And I'm estranged from my siblings because of the things we talk about.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here we are. We find ourselves right back at the place where we meant to be.
Yeah. So rewind to roll of thunder, hear my cry. So yes, I'm going to put that to the side on the dessert plate for now.
Yeah. Okay. Do.
But if you're, and again, always feel free to say, yeah, not right now or whatever. I can't even tell you what that would mean for my life.
I'm going to start picturing it on the grocery bag paper for you. If that feels accessible,
Yeah, it does.
That form of book is more accessible than the white pages with the little black letters in the
yes, yeah. And I'll probably have to get a typewriter because I write on the computer, but typing on the typewriter feels more.
Yeah.
When you write, what's your process?
the back of the envelope, the like, honey, give me that. I gotta write this down. Like that.
Oh,
Where's
wow.
paper? Why don't I, like
Wow.
write some
Yeah.
stuff down. But I also I can sit in front of a computer with a blank screen and just start.
Oh, you can.
I can, but usually I've thought about it first and I've gotten a couple of lines. And so I come with my back of the envelope, the Con Ed bill, and I have a few lines and that gets me started. It's like coming with sparks
Yes.
and then I, see if we go.
I like that image so much. That's so great. So, with this book, Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry, it was so great that it didn't happen last time because it started growing in me like a little, what's a plant that just won't stop growing really fast?
Right.
I can't think of one right now.
Right.
Yeah, right. Just takes over like those wonderful dandelions or, whatever. So the hillside was full of dandelions about this book.
I
So
wish
what are your thoughts about it?
I wished I had time to read it with you, and I need to get it into my hands as soon as I go home to my home where the book is. And
do you remember what you were wondering about?
yes.
Okay.
Sure. Just Jeremy, just the character of Jeremy as a patron saint of what we are discussing. So I asked my son to read the book before I had read it.
Okay.
I don't know what I was thinking. I was like, that's a kid's book. You read that one and I'll read these other ones. Right. And so he starts reading it and he starts reading about the nightmen. Is that what they were called? The nightmen, when the headlights?
Right.
And he said, Mom, I can't read this. I'm terrified. This is the scariest thing I've ever read in my life. Because the nightmen would roll through and it's just, they might set the house on fire. They might shoot everybody,
So your son was feeling that they could be in his space. Is that right? Or just a general that they exist at all?
That they exist at all in the character. I mean, I think he had enough empathy with the characters that the idea of the family, the Logans, being endangered by the nightmen was so terrifying. The believableness of it.
Yeah. Because it was real. Yeah.
Right. You can watch a Marvel movie and be like, the big thing, the aliens coming through the hole in the sky. And it's like, I'm scared, my heart's pounding, but I'm not terrified. And so when he's reading Roll of Thunder and the nightmen are rolling through the night and the people are being treated the way they're being treated, he was just like, I'm not gonna be able to sleep, and he was little. He was just kind of like, I can't do this. I cannot read this book. I'm so frightened. So I was like, okay, let me read it, and then we'll talk about it, and then we'll read it together. We can read it. I can read it with you, and you won't be alone with it. I started to read it and felt the same thing. Not I can't read this, but this is terrifying. And it wasn't new. It wasn't new information, but the story is so well told. Yeah. And it caught me at a moment when I have two white sons who I'm accountable to in the process of aligning to Black liberation and aligning the whole, pulling us all into our integrity and how are we going to live and how are we going to move in these bodies that has integrity in this corrupt setup. How are we going to be intentional about all this? So I'm reading the book and I notice the loneliness of Jeremy, who is the child of the most notorious crime family basically in town. I mean, they're not the most powerful in terms of status. Am I remembering correctly?
Well, they're not the family. Yeah, right. What I remember, and this is, this could be flawed,
Okay.
but my memory of the families that you're referencing is that there's this family that owns the store they boycott in the book.
Okay.
And then, and the power that family exerts on the Black community via the sharecroppers, who also are who are not like the main family who own their land.
Right.
And so there's this power that exists that can at any second turn violent. And so what I don't remember a specific family having that really criminal potential, but I remember that what I had in my notes that I looked at this morning was that I wanted my students to understand what it was like to live when at any second a moment could become violent. And you would have no idea, you would have every idea that it could happen, but no idea when it would happen.
Yeah.
And you were powerless to stop it. And so when I'm listening to you talk about a family that would have that kind of power, yes. I also remember this family that kind of owns, like, I don't know if they own the bank or, I just remember there were hierarchies.
Right. And I wonder if I'm remembering, I'll have to check it, but what I recall.
Well, I can tell you, you probably have a much better sense of it than I do, because like I say, I didn't teach it. Okay. So I read it, I made notes about it. Yeah. I was aware of it. I'm aware of some of the things that I had my students write about in response to it, or make art about, actually, because it was a Waldorf school. But regardless.
Yeah. And like fourth grade? Age or?
No, that would have been in fifth grade, because in Waldorf schools, you do local history in fourth grade.
Okay.
So they would have learned about somebody like Anne Braden, and, in reference to these specific histories. And, then in the fifth grade is when you branch out a little bit and say, okay, what was going on in the country when those things you learned about in fourth grade were happening here?
Okay.
So there's this constant building on space. What was happening in the world, in your neighborhood at that time, what was happening in our city at that time, and then in fifth grade, what was happening in the country. And for us to be in Kentucky, and that book to be set in the South was, very helpful. Yeah. And also there's some strong old Black farming folks here that I know who have stories like that. Yeah. So those are when I listen to you talk about this power and this Jeremy, I think, yeah, I'm going to revisit that too.
He's such a, he's so lonely.
Yeah.
And his family is dangerous. That's the only thing that I remember for sure. I don't remember what degree of ownership they had in the town, or maybe they didn't. And maybe they were, maybe they were on an edge that then they used to cut everybody who they resented, but I know he had older brothers who were in trouble and causing trouble, and I know his father was a terror to people in the town. And he wanted so badly to be friends with the Logans. And their parents and uncle and were like,
no, right.
You may not be friends with him. And Cassie was like, fine, I don't care. Let me turn off. But she, Cassie was like, all right, I hear you. I don't need to be friends with him. But he was insistent, and he wouldn't ride the bus.
That's right. I do have that in my notes, that he walked alongside of the bus. Or yes.
He
And
would walk with the
yes,
Logan kids,
yes,
but that endangered them.
right.
He
Yes.
he couldn't ride the bus because he didn't want to be part of what they were doing on the bus. But when he walked on the side of the road with the Logan kids, because he cared about them and felt affinity and alignment with them, he endangered them. So they needed to be like, you got to leave us be.
Yeah.
So he's alone.
Yeah. You know what? That I actually have a triangle drawn in my notes. I have a triangle and I don't have the names, but I just love talking with you so much. I love what you bring to this.
We fit into each other nicely, don't we?
Well, and I have to say that, I can feel the loneliness dissipates for people as they listen to this too, because anyway.
Yes.
Yes, thank you so much for that. I have this theme that I had through 4th, 5th, and through 8th grade, because I had my students 4th through 8th grade, of who can be friends with who. Like, so that was how I chose to kind of weave together the histories that they would learn. Who can actually be a friend with whom? How will that work? And that
history.
Yes.
Wow, that's the way. Okay, go ahead.
So you're asking the same question. You're saying this kid, who can he be friends with? He can't be friends with these white kids because he's not there. Yeah. He can't be friends with these Black kids because he'll endanger them.
Yeah. And
they're saying, no, thank you. Yeah. So what's left?
And they don't hate him. They just
need to be safe.
Stakes are just much, much higher.
Yes.
And in a way that he is coming to understand more and more,
right,
how high the stakes are for them. And so in his maturity, he's able to give them the space and figure himself out, seems like.
Yeah, and I linked that question to another book that is less well read and well known about Elizabeth Keckley, who was the seamstress who sewed and was owned by Mary Lincoln.
Oh.
Yeah, her story is phenomenal.
Oh, I can't wait to read it.
Yeah, I've got the Smart Butt book on the way for you. So as soon as that arrives, I'll send you the other book, but then I'll send you, I have an extra copy of that actually from when because I did teach this book.
Okay. Oh my God, I'm excited.
And so this is a response to this whole question of this character you're asking about. Okay. So it's so weird because I actually wrote this down next to my old notes. I wrote, does this have a connection to Elizabeth Keckley?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because I guess somehow intuitively I thought, I kind of was guessing at what your interest might be.
Oh.
Yeah, and it was just a guess, but I didn't want to cement it in and actually research it because I didn't want to do that to you. That just would have felt kind of disrespectful to anticipate what you wanted and then actually, build a case around it. But that
need to do extra work, but it wouldn't have harmed
me. Well, anyway, I always feel like whatever you do is what you're supposed to do, but
okay, cool.
But I definitely don't want to cement Anastasia into a space. Not that I have that power, but okay, I'm going to try to make this make sense.
Okay, take your time.
So Elizabeth Keckley, the short version of their relationship was that Mary Lincoln thought Elizabeth Keckley was her best friend. Yeah, just take that in. Like, I remember when I said that to my students, I made this long story, narrative to introduce these two characters. And I told the story of Elizabeth Keckley, and then I told the story of Mary Lincoln. And I said, and Mary Lincoln believes this woman I just told you about is her deepest, most cherished, beloved friend. And she owns her. And yeah, and so then Elizabeth Keckley writes this public letter much later in the relationship, basically saying, excuse me, I'm assuming the word fuck is okay with you. Sorry to our listeners, but basically says, fuck you, Mary Lincoln. You never were my friend. You'll never be my friend. Fuck you.
Wow.
And just publicly denounces her.
Wow.
Yeah.
Powerful move.
Powerful, such a powerful story, you know, so I used it. I actually got a grant, and I worked with a local composer and some puppet makers, and we created an opera about this story.
You're amazing.
So, well, I didn't do it. I just got the grant and gave the money to everybody else to do it.
That's
yeah.
Okay.
So the students did it with this composer friend of mine and so on. Well, anyway, but the question was exactly what you're asking. You know, so there's Mary Lincoln. She's alone. She's also alone.
She doesn't seem to know she's alone.
And now her best friend has disowned her publicly. You know, like, what was that like? What was for that everybody in around, you know?
And did she ever come to understand enslavement and her role in it, Mary?
My understanding is no.
She just thought people were born into their groove, and that's just, there's nothing we could do about it. Except like be friendly.
Yeah, I will say I have in Kentucky seen white women who have those relationships with their Black employees that work in their homes. And I've seen how they treat them as friends.
And the word for it, the word that's coming to mind that I learned in this context from Reverend Angel, I always am talking about her, but her words are so reliable and alive. Extraction.
Yeah. Yep.
It's not intimacy, it's extraction.
Yep. Exactly. And so, you know, it brings me to the question of this boy, of what type of friendship can he have with, you know, and I ask myself that all the time. What kind of friendship can I really have with the people I call my friends? You know, so I feel what your question about this boy.
Because if he truly has love for them.
Yes.
And admiration you know, has that feeling of like when you care about somebody so much that just the fact that they exist is enough. Like you don't like them because they make you laugh. You don't like them because they feed you good food. You just, they just kind of have a glow and on them, or just you delight in their existence. And it's specific. He's not like fetishizing all Black people in town. They travel some of the same paths and intersect at some of the same places in town. And he wants to be friends, but the only way that he can, my read of it, demonstrate actual, like, I care about you, is to leave them alone. Leave it be. Yeah. Give them space. All the Logan kids, I think it's like 3 kids who he's, different ages that they, and I think he learns to do that because he needs to go to his, he needs to deal with understanding what are the forces at work here that make it so that, okay, why is it dangerous for me to be close to you? Right. Why does it feel so dangerous for me to be at my own home? Yeah. Who are the people who I come from? Am I going to become them? Do I have to be like them? If I'm not like them, do I have to leave them? If I leave them, where will I go? Is it my job to make them be different? Is that even possible?
I think these are questions
Can I
people
even-
ask themselves now.
Yeah, can I even avow the fact that I care about the Logans, or does even speaking that I care about them draw attention, a hot, bad attention to them in a way that I need to close that whole thing up, because the environment is so, like you say, it could turn violent at any moment, but the violence won't be aimed at Jeremy.
Right.
It'll always bypass Jeremy.
Yeah.
Even if he confronts his family at home. Now, that doesn't mean that Jeremy's safe at home with abusive people, but
Right.
in terms of this particular challenge in his development of friendships and who's my people. And
yeah. And it kind of reminds me of what you said about the child. I was so affected by what that child said to you about, well, if my family owned slaves, I would be afraid.
I would be afraid of them. Yeah.
Yeah. And it kind of reminds me of that, like he's realizing these people are worth being afraid of.
Yeah. My family is the scary family.
Yeah.
And there's a way in which I feel that in terms of the family. My family is the crime family.
Yeah.
What am I going to do about it?
Right.
How do I want to walk around with that?
Yes. Yeah. And in terms of Mary Lincoln, one of the questions, my students were in 6th grade when we did that. So they had a pretty good indoctrination into, a lot of US history by then. And what we were looking at were some other histories around the world at that point. So now what's happening around the world? Well, how does Mary Lincoln's relationship to Elizabeth Keckley reflect in other countries? What's happening in other countries around the world historically at this time, and how does that seem? And can Mary Lincoln do the things you asked? Did she ever have a reckoning with herself? That sort of thing. Could she have a reckoning with herself? And what was really possible between them, those two women? And what else could have happened?
Right. Who had the piece of paper?
Yeah. What else could have happened there?
That made the terms of their relationship legal.
Yeah. And I think what the conclusion of the opera piece that the students wrote to tell the story.
Yeah. What'd they do?
Well, they really decided that Mary Lincoln, as a white, powerful woman, could have behaved as a friend to Elizabeth Keckley and done this, right? Like, what would it look like? We know what it looks like for Jeremy to be a friend. It means to not endanger the people he enjoys and cares about. In Mary Lincoln's case, it could have been so much more.
And it still would have come to the same thing of leave me alone.
Yeah.
Leave me alone. Like, make it legal.
Bye.
For me to be utterly outside of
your yeah, we're done. Yeah. Right. So I think it begs this question. I love that word, extraction.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Extraction, Reverend Angel talks about.
Yeah, thank you, Reverend Angel. Thank you for that word.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
The line is, she says, racism is unfathomable, unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. And wait, hold on, I have the quote right here. Because I put it in an essay.
Okay, great.
It's from a Facebook post, an Instagram post.
Okay. Yeah, I started looking up. I knew about Resma, but I didn't know anything about her. And so I've started to kind of dive into her. Thank you for that. Yeah, yeah. Maybe when I get a little more deeply entrenched, I'd love to start, talking about some references you've made.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Here it is, Reverend Angel Kyoto Williams in 2020, she wrote. Oh, beyond belief, not unbelievable.
Okay.
Beyond belief, she
Yeah.
calls our labor is beyond your imagination. Our labor is beyond your imagination.
Mhm.
Your perpetual collective extraction is beyond comprehension. And that's what the Mary Lincoln lens on that friendship made me think of. Whew.
I think my sixth graders, basically, that was the conclusion they came to.
Right. And so how about that? How about the fact that the sixth graders, they're ready for it?
Well, that kind of, this has been on my mind since we talked last time, was all the different stories of children and what they've said in response to interactions you've had with them. And just this whole, your son, and this question. So did your son have a comment or interest in Jeremy, or was whatever happened with the book?
It became my book. It became Mom's book that she won't stop talking about.
Oh, I have a whole shelf full of those. My son is 42 now, so he's long gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was wondering, I didn't know if you had children. So in addition to caring for your sister, you also are a parent.
Yeah. But he's 42 and he flew the coop at 17 and never looked back.
Wow.
Traveled all over the world and lived and came home. And yeah. So how about you?
Yeah.
You have two sons.
I have two sons, 16 and 12.
Oh
and
my
so
gosh.
The 16-year-old is the one who, when he read, so he did read the end of it, and he just he was in it. He was having an experience, and because he was at a school that centered racial justice.
Oh, nice.
Under Black leadership, transitioning leadership. Black leadership was not ascending. I don't want to use ascending, but it was coalescing. It was pulling that the school was gathering itself into a centering of racial justice. It was a painful transformation. That my son was one of the white children at a time when it was confusing. It was confusing. So he had a lot of resistance. He felt very blamed. He felt like things were unfairly stacked against him, but he was experiencing the very conscious and deliberate withdrawal of what most white children, I think, just take for granted as that's what it's like to be given the benefit of the doubt all the time. So it was so out of balance, and in an effort to try, there was a little bit of this that happened right at that moment when he was 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 years old. And so it was confusing for him at the time.
Sure.
He embodies it now in a different way. He had to grow into, but he wasn't like, he wasn't all for it. He was like, I don't know what's going on, but I feel like I'm always in trouble. I feel like I'm the problem. I feel like I'm being blamed. He was really going through it.
Huh. And
You know,
was he?
I don't like the way they're teaching this. He was going through a lot of things. I mean,
Huh.
sometimes I think he was maybe, yeah, some stuff was coming down a little harder on him than maybe needed to, but he would just naturally,
Mhm.
it was in his temperament. He really pushed the limits of the adults
Mhm.
caring for him. He pushed me in a way that his younger brother didn't.
Mhm.
He pushed his teachers.
Mhm.
He pushed,
Mhm.
and the push back, he was like, he really had to contend with that. But people weren't having it. They
Mhm.
were not having it. And so it was confusing, and he found his way through it. But he's very like, I trust him.
Yeah, and I think as I'm listening to his story, I'm trying to also respect his privacy and not start to take it in as a story as if I know him.
Yeah, sure.
But I want to respect his privacy and his, I'm not standing on sacred ground with him.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna, I want to be really clear and state that I don't,
Mhm.
everything I say to you about this is not about him,
I understand. Thank you.
because I feel that's not really my lane, so to
Mhm.
speak.
Mhm.
Um, However, I do think I have heard those same responses from
Yeah.
adults
Have
and
you?
from, and I think that oftentimes children do embody what I also see in adults,
Mhm.
so I have not had I've had your son in my classroom,
Yeah,
I've had,
sure.
you know, I mean, in fact, those were always my people. So that's my focus has always been on kids who push,
Mhm.
and that can look a lot of different ways. So I resonate with that pushing,
Yeah.
and I think um, his response to the shifting around him
Mhm.
um, is what we see a lot of white adults are experiencing, that also when this decentering process
Right.
and decolonizing process
Right.
um, is off-putting and can cause disequilibrium, and even if you want it
Yeah.
and you welcome it.
Yeah.
So
And how it played out in school was when the school made a commitment. It's so radical to do this. But the school
yeah,
made
it
a
is.
commitment to make the school environment in every way safe for its Black students. And
Yeah,
Black
and
and
right.
and so it was like, here's how we're going to make this safe.
Mm,
We're not tolerating any bullshit from
right.
any of your kids or
Mm.
from any of you. And it was like, okay, let's don't tolerate any bullshit. All right. And so then how that,
Now,
how
what's that going to look like?
right, it looked like you stay over there, way over there. You're in some kind of mood where you're like aggressing all around you, and you're microaggressing, and you don't know what that word means yet, but like, get the hell over to that side of the room, and I'll deal with you later. But like, it had to happen. And
Mhm,
and there was growing pains. But
mhm,
and I knew my son was like, this does not feel fair at all. But
mhm.
it was like, oh, it was just an opportunity. It had to be. It was like, okay, so connect to that feeling, where and connect that to it. Teaching empathy was not the issue. It was really like, all right, if we're going to make this a priority, yeah, it can't be. Sometimes that you just come down with a boundary, and that's that. This is the limit. You reached it, or you got too close. there's people who are tender, there's people who are traumatized, and you got too close to the point of injury, and even that, like, even if you didn't all the way touch, it hurt and it got everybody upset, and so you go over there and take a break. So there was a lot of that's the best way I can describe it as, but it was confusing, and it was totally worthwhile, and it's a different place now. I mean, it continues to evolve. The school continues to evolve. There's different people there all the time, but something got done there.
And that was the school that you're referencing where you got, at least if my memory serves me correctly, that you were, there were teachers that had said to you, you know, you could do more, you could write this book, you could do more. Yeah. So that was all happening at that time.
All happening at the same time. It was like calling in parents, calling in kids, sending kids home, calling home. This, you know, it wasn't calling home because your kid, you know, didn't pay attention in math class. It was calling home because your kid was part of a little group of white kids who were harassing this one student who's Black, and this, we're not
That's
doing
over.
Come in, we're going to talk about this. We're going to do it right now. It's race. There's race happening here. There is whiteness happening. So it was just like, we're going to address everything, like, just keep the attention on it, keep the attention on it, keep the attention on it, so that we could make the adjustments all day long. And, you know, big meeting, we're having a meeting. The students, the white students don't respond to the authority of the Black teachers. They just ignore us and walk away. But they respond when the white teachers tell them what to do. Get in here, we're having a meeting. It was like that.
That actually happened?
Yeah. And can you, and you
That
can
takes
imagine.
my breath away.
Yeah, it did. It took my breath away too.
Yeah.
And I had written the book by this point.
Okay.
In relationship and with accountability to
these same people. Okay.
Same people. So I got a call, Anastasia, will you facilitate the meeting? Will you run the meeting? Because we need, and will you call all the white families and make sure they come? And so I had the, you know, I loved getting that call. There was nothing I wanted more than to get that call.
Yeah.
Even though it was about a painful thing, it was like, right, this is what we're doing. Absolutely. Oh, I will make all those calls, and I will let people know, you know, it was an opportunity to invite white people, like, come, we can do this, come, you know, inspire their confidence. Not, it was never.
No.
It was never that. I was like, no, we can. Let's go sit, let's go listen. Let's go account for ourselves. Let's go see what's different. Let's go find out what actually happens in the school that we miss when we're not there. Our kids are acting this out. Let's go interrupt it. We, you know, and so we got a chance to do that because the teachers were bold enough to be like, emergency meeting mandatory. You know, there were like 80 kids at the school at that time. Every single parent was called in at the same time for a meeting about how white kids don't listen to Black teachers.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel
and people were mad too. It wasn't.
No, I can imagine.
They were mad, and it was good. It was a clarifying anger, but we needed to account for it. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. I wish I could just let you talk for the next 48 hours about all this. I feel like I've stepped into a paradigm shift that I didn't know was possible. I've imagined things like that. And in fact, when I've done some collaboration with the former education editor at Yes Magazine. Her name was Jing Fong. I don't know if you ever had connection with them, but gosh, I wish she was still there, because then I could call her up and say, you need to do an article about Anastasia. But
Oh, I wish you
I,
could.
I can find out who's in charge now and see. I don't have the same relationship, but she asked me to give a statement about whatever I wanted in terms of a manifesto for teachers type thing. And she chose a certain number of teachers around the country, and I was blessed to be one of them. And I can try to dig up the statement I made, but it was basically to say what you just described is what needs to happen in every school. I mean, I'm just, my mouth is still on the floor. I never, because when I said it, I tried to embody the spirit of, and this, by me saying it, I've just said it can be, it could happen.
Right.
You know, because I always tell people when they do this work, after you do this study of Anastasia's book and these other things that, you know, we've done, you have to daily picture what it's going to look like. You know, you got to have a vision for what the arrival point will be. And not, I mean, because it gets, you know, you're always saying it's a lifetime's worth of work. Yes. And yet,
yeah,
as my husband and I always joke, is it though? You know, like, you know, just different things, like dinner will be, you know, who's cooking dinner tonight? Are you though? You know, right? Like, what is that really going to look like? So it's, you know, I
point to it. It's over there.
Exactly. I'll
Still
point.
in its box.
Yeah, he listens to these, so he'll appreciate the reference thing. Yeah, but it's sort of leaves me without words, because I say to myself, do I really have to work the rest of my life for that to happen? You just say it's going to happen and then you do it. You know, it's so, you know, my friend Rob, who does the portraits for Americans Who Tell the Truth, you know, he and I have talked for years about the devaluing of compromise being part of this process. You know, that
oh
yeah,
just let go of that.
just stop trying to stay married, get divorced.
Yeah.
Divorce is stupid. No, death is stupid. I'm sorry.
But you know, all the titles are interchangeable.
I know. I get them all. But
they are.
But anyway, so that comes back to me as a way to build on what you said, is that, you know, I'm hearing Rob and I talk about my early experiences in classrooms, where on a limited basis, I was able to do that in my time in that classroom, in that school in Louisville, Kentucky. I was able to do that for 3 hours a week, you know, and that felt monumental.
And was, and is.
And yet what we came out of it saying was, but the other hours are all a compromise.
Yeah.
You know, and what it sounds like the school decided to do was stop compromising and just say, liberation is going to happen. You know, and I find that really important to hear.
Yeah.
Are you aware of other places this is happening? Because I am not.
I am not. I mean, I trust that it's happening in different places, just because I know that
on a school-wide basis
care about this. I don't know. I mean, and it was the definition of transformation. I mean, it was disruptive. There was conflict. People's feelings got hurt. People went their separate ways. It was, this relationship was done. That person was never to be heard from again. There was a bad review on Yelp. I mean, you know, all this happened. My son still talks about it as how confusing that was, but he also grew into like, oh, I got it. I mean, I get why they needed to do that. I still don't like how it all shook out, and some of it felt personal,
Mhm.
but I'm good. I'm good with the fact that they did that. But you know, so it had its, and I don't know,
Hmm. And he's 16 now, is that right?
he's
He's the
16.
16-year-old, yeah.
Yeah, and he's mellowed out because he's just older, and when he
Yeah,
was
sure.
younger, it's just he describes himself younger as being full of rage and frustration all the time,
Mhm.
that he just doesn't feel anymore. So he's this super mellow,
Hmm.
centered person who, when he was a child, was just really frustrated and frustrating. And I think it had to do with
Mhm.
just not, you know how some kids are not comfortable being kids and they need to be 20.
Yes, and in a Waldorf look at that,
Yeah.
the way children who present that way are often thought of in terms of how you meditate about them. So again, not talking about your son, but saying if you have a child that presents with that feeling
Yeah.
of I'm just not going to go into this body.
Yeah.
This is not happening. I'm going to resist this
Yeah.
incarnation as best I can.
Yeah.
Right. So the thought is that it's a very Eastern way of looking. So I don't want to even give Waldorf education the credit for it. Rudolf Steiner stole all his ideas from the Theosophists, who stole them from the Buddhists. So,
Okay.
and when I say stole because no credit was given. There's no harm in teaching other people's lessons as long as you say, I learned this from this person,
Yeah.
but Steiner never did. So, to my knowledge anyway. And so that's a really important piece to say. And then the part two of that is that the idea is that if you're resisting the incarnation, it's because in between lives, there's something that from the old incarnation that's not completely burned off yet. And the word burn is used because you're literally on fire. So it feels like going into a human body again is like a fire. You're burning with rage, you're burning with resistance, and it just the unraveling of that takes time, and the cure, so to speak. Not that you're trying to absolve your role as the teacher is to see who the child is, really see, and then move as many of the obstacles out of their way to the incarnation because you're going to be with them for 8 years. So when I hear stories about, and I know children like that, the obstacles are what are unique. The things that are in the way are the unique part of the process. But the fact that there are things in the way of the incarnation is pretty standard, actually. That every one of us has these things that we need to arrive at a point. At some point in our growth, we say, yes, I'm here. And we're comfortable with it, finally. If not, then we probably self-medicate the rest of our lives because it's so uncomfortable to be in your body. And so, yes. So if he was feeling all of those obstacles and he was in a situation like that, I could see where it would be pretty incredible. And I think this story is very representative of what we see. I was thinking about the 2 verdicts that happened in between our talks. And I wrote, and me writing about Kyle Rittenhouse and writing about, what were his early experiences? What happened there? And did he have the same experience you're describing your son had?
We'll go the other way.
And it manifested in this monstrosity that was supported and facilitated in a completely, nobody asked him to make art.
Right. And also, I mean,
here's a gun. That's what you do with this. Here's this, that's what you do with this.
Yeah, where did
and
his
that-
resentment even come from? Like my son's resistance in that time came
Right.
from
Yeah.
a deliberate effort to
hmm To
uproot.
decenter. Yeah.
And but Cal Rittenhouse, was anybody challenging him in that way, or was he doing that thing of acting out the kind of illness, the kind of I don't know. I want to say psychosis, where white
Yes.
people think it's happening to us, but we're actually perpetrating it.
Yes.
That.
Exactly. Yeah. I think he, just my thought is, I've meditated a lot about that individual. And I've thought a lot about how he does really represent so much of what I hear, from my own family members. This outrage. How can you say this about me? I'm not a racist. I'm not doing anything to you. Slavery's over. All the usual things that are tired and worn out, like a pair of boots that just has already fallen apart.
Yeah.
There's no hope to put them back on again, but by golly, I'm going to tape them together and get me a gun and go take care of this. That's the meditation for me, is that these old, worn out, feel this way of feeling threatened.
Feeling threatened. It's.
Yeah.
I felt like my life was threatened, they say.
Yes.
I felt like I was about to, it's so inside out, outside in, My sister's husband, who's also from Kentucky.
Oh, really?
Says, yeah, he's from Benton.
Okay.
He says, outside right, outside wrong. Like, inside out and outside. So, and when the shirt is, it's outside wrong or something like that. But it's like, it's the opposite, but it's the if you flipped it completely, I don't know how to.
Oh, no, you're making perfect sense.
Yeah, you know.
I do. I know what it feels very true to me, and it feels, again, I think we've really touched on something that I have to go to a meeting in about 10 minutes, and I know I'm sure you have. I really, do you want to keep going? I mean,
for 10 minutes?
No, I was thinking, keep going for a few more minutes, but also, can we keep this particular thread running? Because there's some children I would like to bring into the conversation.
Okay.
Through their stories.
Yeah, let's.
I think you're it's just like, oh my gosh, I didn't see those flowers over there. I mean, I think this is going to be so helpful for people.
Okay.
Yeah. I think hearing that, what happened for your son, and leaving his individuality out of it, but, seeing the sacredness of that story. And I would love to talk more, actually listen more about the school.
Okay.
And the fact that actually happened in a school. I mean, I feel as though, my friends at Rethinking Schools, my friends that I've worked with at Yes Magazine, all these people, and then, what are the odds that you would have done an event with Bill? I know usually when I say that, people don't even, I just say, as my beloved friend Bill Ayers says, love, love, and more love. And Bill, I know I send you these recordings, so you better be listening. So, but I'm unaware of anything like this. And I'm not saying I'm aware of everything.
Well, maybe if we talk about it to other
I think
people,
it's
and
really
hear
important.
about it, somebody will say, "I
Yeah,
something
where else are these things?
like
And
that." Yeah,
where else are these things happening where there's an actual divorce?
from supremacy.
Yeah,
Like,
and to say the compromise game is over.
yeah.
Because I see protesters with the sign, "You fucked with the last generation."
Mm.
I see that a lot. I've seen it a lot at the Breonna Taylor, and I hear it a lot, and so forth and so on. And I feel that energy of, no, we're getting divorced. We're done. The compromise game is put away. So the Elizabeth Keckley, the Jeremy,
Mhm.
all of that, that's over.
Mhm. Mhm. Trying to keep both sides from.
Mhm. And the game that
It
um,
only protects the one way. It only has ever compromised in the direction of the same people being in power and protecting their hoarded resources.
and I think when I'm asking people to envision, I think in a lot of ways it's irresponsible of me sometimes to do it, because I think they need something more concrete, like what you're describing. It's just hit me really clearly today in this conversation, because I've listened to you. I realize, oh wow, I don't even think I've really actually let myself think this is what a school, how it would operate day to day. This is who it would piss off. This is who it would, cause to leave. That although I've said it, I've said it to principals of school, if you really want to do this, before we go on this journey, I want to ask you, are you okay if teachers quit like tomorrow?
Right.
This is not going to be, there are going to be teachers who say bye, and they're going to say it tomorrow, not 6 months from now.
And then they're going to say bad things about you.
And then are you prepared for it? Sort of, brings me back to your original thing that Reverend Angel said to you. Wait a minute, you've got to be prepared for what's coming.
Have you prepared the child for the rejection that is to come?
Yeah.
When they start asking questions about white supremacy. Yeah.
My goodness.
And we say things on, and we put things on signs, bring it all down, tear it down, burn it down. There is a version of that isn't actually setting a building on fire, but there will be casualties that are not physical bodily casualties, but when you make a commitment at a school that the Black children will no longer be endangered at this school anymore.
Just that statement.
And the teachers who are the Black faculty and the families and caregivers of the Black students will not be harmed here. It's like,
and they define that. They define harmed.
Right. If somebody says, I experienced this, and the other white people are like looking around like, who was it? Who did that to them? And it's just like, we all did. It doesn't matter. It does matter. This person says, this happens to me here. I feel this harm.
Yes.
In this room with all you well-meaning white people. And so, once you say no more,
then what does that actually look like? And I think the description you're giving is really powerful. And I would love to, if you're, if that's okay with you. I mean, I don't want to control the journey as much as I just want to express that I'm interested in exploring it in more depth. And
I'm
running
trying
out
to
of
do
time.
that.
I don't want running out of time to,
Yeah.
does that seem like a good,
Yeah, for us, for our next conversation, you mean when we
Yeah.
go? Yeah,
yeah.
I love it.
And I have a question for you, just a practical question. I have this thought that maybe if we just keep this time on Tuesdays,
Mhm.
would that be helpful to you to, or would you rather change it up? I mean, change it
Right.
up when you need to, of course, but
Right.
for now, could we make the assumption that we'll do it?
Yep. I like,
And until you need to change it, or, and there
yeah,
might
or,
be, I have a few things maybe over the next, couple of, like in December, I think there's one time I can't do it, but
okay, but let's keep the practice. Let's keep
yeah,
the practice going. And
yeah,
the time slot is great for me.
yeah. I have a friend who has listened to both of our sessions so far, and she's written me a letter. Her name is Monica Lakakwani. Hi, Monica. I know you're going to listen to this. So yeah, oh yeah. So she has written to me about doing some arts and humanities grant sessions and stuff like that. So I think that, already people are feeling like, from listening to me ask you lots of questions and you trying to answer them, I feel so bad sometimes.
That's
But,
exactly.
since you've said blessings over it, as my friends would say that are in the religious section, but you can withdraw that at any time.
I'm enjoying this so much.
But I'm really going to talk to her when we meet about how these things can bring up these possibilities, but this is just on a whole other level for me.
Wow, cool. All right, great. And I
Any
like
parting
talking about it.
shots?
Yeah, no. No,
I don't
I
have any
think that,
either. I'm still every part of my body's still on the floor that a
um,
school actually said this and did it.
yeah, they were off the map with that,
Yeah.
for
I think
sure.
I really feel like they were. Are they a school that people will where is the school, if that's okay to ask?
It's in Clinton Hill, Brooklyn. It's called
Okay.
the Brooklyn Free School. It's a democratic free
Okay.
school.
Okay.
And it's not like, you know, there's a lot of different ways to do a democratic free school.
Sure.
And but this one really in 2015, 14, 15, 16, really turned the focus on like, we're going to do this here. Because everything that's happening out there is happening in here. So we're going to work with this right here in this community.
I'm trying to remember when Black Lives Matter was actually founded.
2013, 2014.
Yeah, I was going to say it was right. So it was not long after that.
Yeah. And because connected, for sure.
I was going to say probably connected. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, yeah, so I'm thrilled to talk about it and to have it as, I mean, it was such a, like the ground of my making in terms of,
Yes.
I mean, I was
Yeah.
already on a
That's
path.
right. Yeah.
But what happened there was such a big bang that, yeah, and several people, like I'm thinking of people who came out of that experience and are in different places now on account of having been so knocked off of our whatever we were clinging to.
Yeah.
And went with it and went like, okay, and then had to kind of shake it off and rebuild, but rebuild with intention, like, all right, if I'm dismantling supremacy in myself,
Yeah.
and then their lives are different, their choices are different than they would have been. Like people, it really changed things. It changed the way that our children got raised. It changed the way the school went forward. And yeah, and it's not the same cast of characters anymore. Some, but it's the same. It's different leadership, and it continues to evolve. So.
Oh my
God.
Thank you.
You're so
Oh,
welcome.
thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. I look forward to these talks, and I really
I do too. I get up really early on Tuesdays. I'm like, oh, this is my, have you read the book, The Little Prince?
No, I only read part of it. I didn't read the whole thing.
Well, there's this part in it where the little prince is talking to this fox that he befriends, and the fox says, you got to come every day at this time because right before then I start getting really excited and I anticipate. So
Oh,
and basically he says, don't fuck with me, little prince. It's really funny, but I realized, yeah, this is like the Little Prince, with the fox. I
really sweet.
really look forward to the time of day when you pass by.
That's beautiful. It's beautiful. And I know that there's people who you're connecting us to and connecting me to. And I feel very grateful to be in relationship with you and with them.
Yeah. And one of them is I'm working with her on bringing her in, and I'll send you information about her when that time gets closer.
Okay, cool.
But she's having a huge life explosion.
Okay.
And it's very connected to what we're talking about. So,
Okay.
All right.
Thank
Much
you
love.
so much for your time. Much love to you too. I'll see you next week.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye.